A very good evening to you who's joined into UBC TV right now. My name is Sophia Matovu and you are watching U Health Chat. This program comes your way at about 9 p.m. every Thursday, where we bring the experts on topics that sometimes you request us to talk about, or at times on topics that we feel are of vital importance to you. Now, the month of November is a month where all matters related to men's health are discussed. Issues like prostate cancer, many others, and certain topics that probably some of you shy away from. Now, as men get older, even we the women, you'll find that it pays to keep, passion alive. Sexual health is a very important and vital part when it comes to well-being of a human being. So today our topic of discussion is sexual health, a concern for men as they grow older. Now, the guest in studio to shed light on this topic is none other than Dr. Paul Kasenene, and it's at your request that we have brought him in studio. Dr. Kasenene, good evening.
Good evening, Sophie.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And good evening, viewers. Thank you for tuning in.
Now, many of the doctors told us they kind of also feel shy to talk about this topic, and they think it's one they should talk about when you visit the clinic. And your name came out strongly top on the list that he will boldly talk about this topic. Now, let's get to talking about sexual health. What is sexual health and well-being as far as humans are concerned?
Well, Sophie, sexual health is really about, both sexes being able to maintain a good sexuality, which, is mainly involved in being able to perform your intimate sexual acts that ultimately have an end goal of either pleasure or reproduction. And as we grow, both sexes, men and women, our sexuality is very important in having children, in our natural sexual relations with our partners and our spouses. And it's a natural part of growing up and humanity. So it's something that is very, very vital and also very important. But we also see that many people actually have issues around this, and so it's important that we talk about it and shed light upon what the problem is and what can actually be done.
Okay. Is it a very big problem? Would like to first establish that.
Yes, so it's actually a big problem, especially if you understand that sexual health problems vary from, simple things like low desire for sex. That could actually be a sexual health problem, to bigger ones like inability to obtain or sustain an erection. So many people, and we start to see this from about 30 years of age, are starting to have issues of low libido, which is a low desire for sex. So when you're in an intimate situation with in this case, a male with a female, you're finding that you're not having that sexual desire. Some people are having issues where they are they have the desire, but they are unable to maintain an erection. Sometimes we'll see people have what we call an premature ejaculation. So you get an orgasm prematurely, very early, much shorter than you would like to, or delayed. Now, this is a big problem, and we see it quite a lot, especially like in my clinic, because I actually, in my intake assessment, have a question around sexuality. And what I can tell you is that for the men, maybe 7 out of 10 men will mention a certain degree of sexual health challenges. So yeah, it's quite common, although many of us tend to feel that sexual health is really when somebody maybe has very severe erectile dysfunction, but it's actually very broad, and there are a wide range of conditions that cover this.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the wide range of, and one thing that you first talked about was the age, because we thought maybe it knocks at 40 plus or 50 plus, the older one gets, the more they are prone to see some of these challenges, and they might not actually realize that these challenges or health concerns are coming as a result of age. But you've talked about as early as the age of 30.
You see, the thing with sexual health is as soon as somebody is sexually active, you can actually start having sexual health problems. And they vary. So why I'm saying from the age of 30 is because the things that actually cause sexual health challenges are related to our lifestyle to the large part. You know, one of the biggest things that is driving sexual health challenges is being overweight, especially if you're carrying weight around your belly. This is a very big problem because the belly fat is going to interrupt your normal hormones, and it's your hormones that drive your sexuality. We also see people are engaging more in consumption of alcohol. They are engaged in more in using, you know, recreational drugs. So these are things that actually have a big impact on your sexuality. So as soon as somebody, you know, reaches an age where they are sexually active, and, you know, depending on their lifestyle, depending on their health situation, we can start to see these problems. So yes, we need to accept that they can start very, very early. And usually the people who get them earlier, they tend to shy away from actually talking about them, because imagine you're 30 years old and you're struggling to have an erection. You know, it's something that is not easy to talk about. And so we find that it's important that people know that this problem can come really early. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. And you should be bold enough to talk about it with your doctor, because when people, for example, come to see me in the clinic, sometimes, you know, with men, they come and see you, and for the first 20 minutes, you really don't understand what has brought them to the clinic. Like, they're telling you all kinds of things, and you're failing to connect the dots. And randomly, like after like 15 minutes, says, "But doc, you know what? There's also this other thing. What about sexuality, or having a, libido?" And then you realize this is actually the main issue. And so you find that people are struggling to talk about it openly, but it's a big problem and they are concerned about it. And so we find it's quite common. And so it's very important that, if you're a man, just let your doctor know that this is the problem, so that you actually find a solution to it. But it's a common problem, and because there's a wide spectrum, we find that many people are having these issues.
Then how, because given that it's a common problem, is it something that doctors easily, comfortably deal with, or certain times, maybe the doctors also do shy away from having these conversations with their patients, and they want the routine conditions that they're used to? You've come in because you have, maybe high blood pressure. You've come in maybe because you're struggling with diabetes, and they want to talk about those regular ones and might not know how to address these concerns.
So depending on the nature of the doctor you see, or the healthcare professional, sometimes doctors are very specialized, and so sometimes this is really outside of their main field of expertise. And so first of all, they may not even think that it's a problem worth probing about, because every time a doctor sees a male, that's an opportunity to talk about such a problem, because that's when you pick up many of these things, and some people who want to talk about it but are not ready to can. So the high level of expertise makes it an issue. Sometimes we are not taught, in medical school to actively seek out these kinds of problems. So if someone doesn't volunteer the information, then it's hard to talk about it. But also because sometimes, if someone does talk about it and, they're saying, look, I have a low sex drive, it's just like how in the past people said, oh, I'm obese. Like, that's a simple thing, go sort it out. So there needs to be more awareness amongst doctors that these problems exist, and they should try and find ways to probe and see if they can address them. But I think there would be a willingness for doctors to talk about them if the opportunity came up, or at the very least a willingness to refer them to somebody who can address the situation. But my experience has been that because I actively ask about these problems, many people are actually opening up and saying, yes, this is a problem. And because I talk about them on social media, I get many people, inboxing me, sending me messages, saying, can you help me with this? And sometimes, of course, people don't come directly. They just ask, I have this friend who, is struggling with sexual health issues. What can I advise him? Things like that. So, but in any case, it's still an opportunity to reach out.
Yeah. Now, what would be your advice? Is it wise for them to walk into the clinic with their wife and have this conversation in her presence, or it should be something totally private, and then, you know, whatever remedy they use, it is their secret? If the woman is not getting what she expects, the blame is placed onto the woman. It is you with the sexual problem.
So I think this is really a very interesting question, because I think it depends case by case. In the medical profession, the first thing we have to observe is privacy. So if you're going to have a discussion with a man and a woman, there's got to be consent from the man. I think for the many times, it's really things that someone can do on a personal level that they can address, that they can actually deal with. But sometimes it's nice for you to engage as a couple, because sometimes there's more, you know, insight, there's more understanding about what the problem may be. And especially when sexual dysfunction, you know, affects fertility or inability to have children, or is a problem in the marriage, because many people are not feeling like they're getting sexual gratification because their partner is struggling with some sexual dysfunction or sexual health issue. And so, you know, it really depends. But my recommendation is initially go in as a man and talk about it privately, and then get your advice from your doctor, because sometimes you need that trusted space, that space where there's trust and you feel like you can actually talk about this without this going to be a major issue. Sometimes it's embarrassing to talk about it. Sometimes you're a male, you're the alpha, you know, person in your family, you're supposed to be the guy who takes care of everything, depending on your tribe or your culture. Sometimes men are men, so it can be a big issue. But I think that if you have an issue as a man, it's very important to understand these things can be addressed for the large part, and they can be sorted. So instead of struggling with this condition, you can just go in and talk about it. And you don't even have to reveal the reason that has taken you there. You can say, I've come for high blood pressure at the reception, and then when you go into the doctor, then you can reveal it to them. As long as you reveal it early and, you know, be direct about the problem, that's when you get the most benefit.
Okay. Now I'd like you to help us, and we get to the stage where we break down, you know, the most common conditions we are seeing here in Uganda, and possibly the signs and symptoms. How will one know that when this is happening to me as a man, it is because of maybe erectile dysfunction? What are the signs and symptoms, so we're able to take them through this conversation?
Okay, so what I find to be the most common presentation is a low sex drive or a low libido. And that's where you're in an intimate relationship, but whenever you're in that situation where there's potential to have a sexual relation, you're just not having any drive whatsoever or any interest to perform the sexual act. So that's the most common. And it has varying degrees. You know, sometimes it will be all the time, sometimes it will be sometimes. Then we have erectile dysfunction issues, where that becomes the next one, where people are failing to actually have an erection, or they are failing to maintain an erection. So you can have an erection, but then, you know, the penis doesn't stay, you know, erect, and it becomes limp. That's another issue. And these tend to be the two most common ones that people will present with. Now, sometimes sexual dysfunction or sexual health issues go along with not necessarily the erection or the libido, but like, you know, you're having a premature ejaculation. That means you're engaging in a sexual encounter, and maybe within a few seconds you're having an orgasm, and maybe that is not satisfying your sexual partner, or you're having a delayed ejaculation. Those are now the third layer of problems. Then you have now other problems that tend to go along with, you know, a sexual encounter usually ends with an orgasm or an ejaculation. And sometimes you're having an ejaculation, but, you know, maybe there's nothing coming out, or you're having an ejaculation and it's very liquid, or it's not enough sperm for you to successfully have a pregnancy. And so now you have your sexual health issues going towards what we call fertility issues. But then, of course, as you grow older, you also have issues to do around your hormones. And your hormones, the main hormones are testosterone, which is the male hormone, and also hormones like estrogen. Now, hormones, as you grow older, they affect your prostate. So you start to get, either prostate enlargement or risk for prostate cancer. And that can also then affect your sexual performance. So this is really majorly where the sexual health issues rotate. And as you grow older, there may be more unique kinds of problems that are coming in. But what we definitely see is that, I was surprised, but you find 80-year-old men coming to your clinic and being concerned about their sex drive and their sexuality. So it's something that people are very interested in all through their lives. So as long as people understand that these are challenges, then we can start from there and say, okay, how do we address them?
Okay. Now, there are certain times, just like we say, it's a topic, maybe because culturally, the way we have been raised, men will share a way to talk about. And when they sit in their quiet corners, and then their friends say to them, you said what? You use the molondo. You combine it with the coffee, and you'll get the result. How far true are some of this, or maybe even herbal remedies, are some of the bits that, or choices that people have resorted to think that it will help them to sort out that issue?
So when it comes to health in general, there tend to be two approaches to solving problems. The first is deal with the symptom that's there. So, okay, I'm failing to have an erection. What do I take? Do I take Mondia, which is Molondo? Do I take Maca? What do I do to get the erection? That's the same kind of approach we tend to use in medicine. I have high blood pressure. What do I take to lower the pressure? That tends to give you short-term results. But the main thing you want to be asking is, why am I having this problem? And if you deal with the long-term causes of the problem, then you no longer find that you need these short-term remedies. But to answer your question, short-term remedies can help, but they tend to mask the
overall bigger picture, the problem.
Picture. Yes. And of course, not everything works the same way, not everything works with people the same way, but there are aphrodisiacs, there are herbs and things out there that will help you to either improve your libido or have an erection and things like that. Yeah.
Wow, that is really, because some of them have resorted to that, like we said earlier. Now then, what about the issue of, like you say, if you have an 80-year-old walking to your clinic and they're still feeling like, they're sexually active, how do you think, or they need to get their drive up there? What do you think is their motivating drive? Because there are times people think that the older somebody gets, they should get out of the game.
Well, interestingly, human beings can maintain sexuality, especially men, way into their later years, even up to 90 years, if you're healthy. So if an 80-year-old comes into my clinic, my main thing I'm thinking about is your hormones, because testosterone is usually the driving factor. And I want to know, are you actually having optimum hormone levels? Now, if not, I want to know what is your health condition, because there are certain health conditions that are going to affect your libido and your sex drive. Do you have diabetes? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? How is your mental health? These things have an impact on your libido. So we want to address, to look at those and see how are those, where do you lie in that situation. You also want to look at what medication is someone taking. Because if someone is on medication, then you're going to find that some medications like antidepressants or hypertensive medications, they lower your libido, even cholesterol medications. So you want to look at the things that actually can affect your libido. But aside from the 80-year-old, usually there are like 5 things that tend to drive this condition. And these are things everybody should think about. And you also see them in 80-year-olds. The first is your weight. If you're overweight, especially weight around your belly, you're going to find that the belly fat is producing chemicals that affect your hormones, and it's going to affect your libido. So you want to think about addressing that. The second thing is stress levels. When you're stressed, your body produces hormones like cortisol, which are meant to help you overcome stress. But cortisol affects the way your body produces sex hormones. In a very simple way, the raw materials to make cortisol, the stress hormone, are the same ones to make your reproductive and sex hormones. So if you have a lot of stress, cortisol is sucking up all these raw materials that would be used to be making your sex and reproductive hormones. So now you'll be struggling in that area. We also want to quickly look at how much alcohol is someone drinking, and you want to look at things like, are they smoking? You want to look at, are they physically active, exercising? But the one big thing that I usually look out for is how much, muscle mass does somebody have? Because your muscles will determine how much testosterone your body will actually need and use. And it will actually be a big factor into how much, sexuality or sexual abilities you have. So it's really about starting by understanding what could be driving the condition, which I've already shared some of the things, and then saying, okay, now what's the plan going forward?
Now, doctor, you've talked about the issue of muscles, and I'm just trying to think about it because there is I don't know whether it's a myth or a misconception or it's a fact, where they say that when people bodybuild, it has got an effect on their sexuality.
Yes. So, you see, men historically were hunters. And hunting, you needed a lot of muscle. And muscle is usually, growth of muscle is driven by human growth hormone. Okay? Now, the more muscle you have, the more growth hormone you're going to also have, because growth hormone is needed to build muscle. Now, growth hormone is one of the biggest, drivers of, your libido, your sexual function. So when you have more muscle, you're going to have more growth hormone, you're going to have more likelihood of having good testosterone levels and good hormones that will help you perform sexually. Now, many men today are losing this muscular nature because they sit a lot, they don't exercise, and they eat unhealthy food. So now we are seeing people with less muscle, and what ultimately happens is the first thing you see when you have less muscle is you're going to be more likely to have more breasts, and you're going to have more female body shapes. And that's going to have a big impact. So if we deliberately go out there and maintain our muscle mass, it's a big, big plus, for maintaining a healthy sexual vitality.
Then what about the fact that some men go through some of this, like say vasectomy? Does that affect in any way a man's sexual health?
It shouldn't affect your sexual health, except that, psychologically, it can be a problem. Because a lot of sexuality depends on our mental health, our mental situation, our confidence, I believe that we are actually the alpha male, that I'm actually able to be, dominant in this relationship in terms of my sexual ability, to be able to perform sexually. So because a vasectomy is really not affecting your hormones per se, it shouldn't have a major impact on your sexuality. But because in an African context, in the way sometimes we engage socially, you find that sometimes people are looking down upon you. They're saying you're not a man anymore. How can you do things like that? So those are the kinds of ways in which eventually it can affect you. But I don't think per se a vasectomy should affect your sexuality.
Okay, what about sexually transmitted infections? Can they affect?
Yes, definitely. So they can. So when we talk about now sexual dysfunction or sexual health, it's important to understand that usually the hormones drive this. And the major hormones are testosterone and human growth hormone. These tend to be produced by your testicles, your gonads. That's really the place where the actual hormones are produced. So anything that will affect your testicular area, your whole testicular, reproductive area, can affect your sexual health, especially it will mainly affect sexual erection, and will affect fertility. So you end up having infections that end up going to your testicles. They call it an orchitis, or you just have any sexually transmitted disease. These can actually affect your gonads or your testicles, which will have a major impact on your sexuality. So yes, infections can play a big role in your sexual health. And those are some of the things we actually check for when we are trying to see what could be driving unexplained sexual dysfunction issues. But if someone does have a sexually transmitted infection or has a history of that, because STIs, sexually transmitted infections, can be silent, and even though you don't have any overt symptoms, you could still have a sexually transmitted infection which could affect your fertility. So it's important to screen for those and to check for those.
Okay, now that you've taken us through that, let's say we've known the causes, we've known the signs and the symptoms, how are some of these remedies or concerns treated? What remedies or what medications? I'm not telling you to mention, by the drugs. It could be somebody will go and say, I had Dr. Kasenene mention that drug X works for this, and before you know it, they self-medicate for themselves. But what are the treatment options for those kind of sexual health concerns?
Okay, so first of all, it's very important to know what is the main issue at hand so that you deal with it. Now, I'll start with the low libido. So with the low libido, the first thing you want to deal with is stress. You want to deal with stress, and you want to deal with emotional health and mental health. So you want to ask, how stressful are you? If it's work stressful, there's a very lot of stress in your life, whether it's due to relationship or finances or something, you want to address that because you want to address the cause of the problem. Now, you also want to be able to address things like, are you comfortable in your relationship? Do you feel confident enough? Sometimes it's an issue of, my wife earns more money than me, she looks down upon me, I don't feel like I'm the man in the house. So you want to address those kinds of things, because with the low libido, it's an emotional thing, and the brain is not sending the signals to the reproductive area, to your penile area, to get the erection up. So you've got to start sending the messages down there. So it's very, very important to try and identify what is the cause of the problem. Now, I'm going to share identifying the cause, but there are also things you can do in the short term to actually help you with this issue. So once you address this issue of stress and mental health, then you want to next address weight. Okay? And as you address your weight, you're not just trying to lose weight, you're trying to lose weight and build muscle. So we are going to always tell men, engage in strength exercises. Do push-ups, do weights, build your muscle mass. Okay? It's very, very important, both for libido and sexual function. The third thing is you want to quickly evaluate and say, are you drinking too much alcohol? Sometimes people don't realize that just by reducing the amount of alcohol that you drink, you can actually improve your sexual health. Are you smoking? Now, why does smoking cause a problem? Especially because the sexual act requires an increased flow of blood through the blood vessels in the penis, and that's how it enlarges. Now, if for some reason the blood cannot flow because either cholesterol plaque is there or there is damage due to smoking, anything that prevents the flow of blood will prevent an erection. So you want to look at alcohol, you want to look at tobacco, you want to look at all the other drugs, marijuana, and things like that, to see how that is going. Now, once you've done this, you quickly want to look at someone's diet. Why? Because many of the nutrients that help us with sexual function come from food. And so you need to know, what should I eat? What should I not eat? Now, very quickly, the four things people should avoid, number one is sugar. So I'm not saying don't take sugar 100%, although that's what I would like people not to do. But you need to cut it down significantly. That's soda, sugar, and all these sugary things. The second thing you want to do is you want to avoid what we call refined carbohydrates, things which are going to make you gain fat, especially around your belly. So too much bread, too much cake, chapati, things like that. You want to avoid that. You want to avoid processed meats, sausage, bacon, salami, frankfurters, because these have been shown to contribute to an imbalance in our hormones, which will be bad for us. You also want to avoid deep fried foods. Now, what do you want to eat then? So there are certain foods which are very important for your sexual health. Number one is red foods. Red foods, watermelon, tomatoes. They contain lycopene, which is very important for sexual health, prostate health. You want to eat seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds. You want to go for herbs, ginger, garlic, fenugreek, cloves. There are certain things that are very good. Then there are other things like nuts, almonds and cashews, bananas are very good, eggs, good protein, fish, eggs. So you want to eat the right food, okay? So once you've addressed these, then you say, okay, do we need to supplement? So now I was like, okay, maybe we need to give you a supplement that is going to contain some of these things. And top of the list should be zinc and magnesium. So especially men lose zinc with every ejaculation. And yet zinc is extremely important for your prostate, for your sexual health. So you want to check out zinc, magnesium, omega-3s, vitamin D. So you may give a supplement for that. So all this package is really about trying to optimize your hormones and make you more likely to produce them naturally so that you can have a natural sexual function without needing other things. But God has put things in this world which are aphrodisiacs, things that can help you to improve your libido. I mean, in Uganda, popular is mulondo. Indeed, it is one of the things that can actually help you with your libido and with your erection, both of them.
Wow.
So it's called mondia, but there are others. So maca powder is a root. There is also something called honey goat weed. That's also very good. But we also have something called Prunus africanus. It's an African tree bark. It's very, very good. Now, of course, things like coffee, wine in small quantities, they can actually help to, in the short run, improve your sexual function. And I actually tell people, you want to try and think of these herbal remedies before you think about, the PD5, the Viagra kind of drugs. Okay? So these things actually do help. Mulondo, maca powder, honey goat weed, your himbin bark, they actually do help. So you want to, I tell people, in the short run, as you're working on the bigger cause, use some of these, remedies to improve your sexual health. Of course, they come also as supplements. So we can actually use these as well. And then thirdly is address health conditions which somebody has. Top of the list, diabetes. Diabetes is a libido killer, is a sexual dysfunction killer. It's kill your libido, cause erectile dysfunction, and really mess around with your sexuality. So you've got to manage your diabetes. And I'm not talking about take diabetes drugs, I'm talking about manage your diabetes naturally. Because diabetes, especially type 2, can be reversed. Then high blood pressure. Manage your blood pressure. Manage your cholesterol levels. If your cholesterol is high, you'll have a plaque in your blood vessels. You can't maintain an erection. So you really want to ensure that you have normal blood pressure, normal cholesterol levels, normal blood sugar levels. And you can do this naturally. The other thing is medications. You want to look at someone's medication. And if you're on medication and you're having problems with libido especially and erectile dysfunction, go to your doctor and talk about it. Most medications affect libido. And it's very, very easy to tell that I started this medication for high blood pressure, my libido went down. And so you need to find, can we change the medication? Can we look for something natural to substitute it? But medications can be, a very, very big factor, especially cholesterol medications and high blood pressure medications, which are two of the most prescribed medications. Then antidepressants. Most people are on not most people, but many people are on antidepressants, and I think most don't need to be on antidepressants because feeling low and feeling sad and having a bit of depression is a natural part of our lives, going through good and bad times. But antidepressants really kill our libido. Then check your vitamin status, vitamin Bs, magnesium, vitamin D, and zinc. Make sure that those are optimized. If you're not sure, you take a supplement. So once you do this, you're going to find that people are, on the right track. The last thing we'll do, if these are not working, is check your hormones. So let's check, how is your testosterone level? Because testosterone is the male hormone. It's the one that's going to drive sexual function. So you want to check testosterone levels and make sure that they are fine. We also check the other hormones, prolactin, estrogen, which is more of a female hormone, and see what is the balance. And then you decide, how do I manage it? Now, I'm not a big fan of testosterone replacement, of giving a testosterone hormone. I believe in trying to optimize this testosterone. Now, it's only after you've done all this that you say, okay, can I maybe look for, sildenafil, Viagra, and things like that. Now, these are drugs like Viagra, you need to understand that they're actually very effective, but they have very major side effects, especially on your heart, on your blood vessels. Yes, people get heart attacks and things like that. But they are not, I don't want people to feel like I'm going to get a heart attack, but you need to understand that there are risks associated with them.
Viagra.
Yes, but really what we see is that the body's ability to restore sexual function is not complicated. You just have to start doing the things that make your body feel like I am a man. And once you do that, the hormones will balance or reciprocate. And where there are other medical issues that are affecting your health, you deal with them. But otherwise, it's many people are struggling and they don't realize that there's actually hope or potential to solve this issue. But many times, I must also say this, if things are not working, go and see a doctor. Go and see a urologist. Go and see a sexual health specialist. And they do a thorough check, because then they'll do this proper screening. Do you have any sexually transmitted infection? Are your hormones okay? Is your testicles okay? They'll look for all these things. But in all honesty, it's only about 5% of people who have these kinds of things. Most of the times, it's really that as I'm aging, I'm not exercising enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm excessively stressed, I'm drinking too much, I'm not sleeping enough. It's things like that. And people not knowing where to go or what to do, to find solutions to their problems. Yeah.
Now, doctor, that there's a time there was a message going viral where they were encouraging men that one of the ways you can avoid getting prostate cancer is engaging, in a lot of sexual activity. How far true is that?
So, the truth is sex is very good for health on multiple fronts. Of course, the primary goal is to have children, but it's good for your blood pressure. It's good for, what happens is how it helps your sexual health or your prostate is that, every time you ejaculate, you're actually triggering the release of hormones. And these hormones actually have a beneficial effect on your body. So every time you do have sex and have an ejaculation, you're actually lowering your risk for prostate cancer. But people need to know that with every ejaculation, you lose zinc. And zinc is necessary for prostate health and sexual health. So a lot of sex with an unhealthy diet can actually won't result in the benefits you're expecting, because you're not probably losing zinc. So you must make sure you're eating enough of zinc foods, pumpkin seeds, avocados, and things like that. But I think, sex can be very beneficial, but not its own as a solution to all your issues.
Okay. You talked about the treatment strategies, for the different bits. Then what about issues? Have you seen amongst your clients where there's poor response? Where you try option A as a treatment option, or maybe as a plan and strategy for them, you try B, but there's poor response. What could be the problem?
So usually the problem is either going to be, it's usually going to be something that has to do with the source of testosterone production, which is your gonads, your testicles. And usually it's going to be that you have something that is totally blocking the production of testosterone. So if, for example, if you had, some people had cancer as children and then had radiation therapy. Okay, so your gonads or your testicles were damaged. So all these other things are not going to work, because ultimately there is not going to be production of testosterone, which is going to be able to yield, the results you want in your sexual action. Or you have a silent STI, sexually transmitted infection, or you have an otitis. So at that point, you really want to look at, what is happening around someone's hormones. And then at that point, that's where you need to now get a specialist, because sometimes you actually need to do hormone replacement therapy. Now, that is a tricky business that should only be done by a doctor who knows how to do it. Because while it can be beneficial, it can have other side effects. So many times you see, you will have someone say, look, I'm exercising well, I'm eating well, I'm taking these things, but I'm not seeing my results. So you want to now start diving into these issues. But it's very, very rare that you will be totally unable to solve the issue. Although it's possible that these natural methods will not be the solution to your challenge. Although that's not, although what I've seen in my practice is most of the time that those are very rare cases.
Okay.
But they are there.
Okay. Now, Doctor, you did carry a wonderful book here. For the person who is watching, it talks about Eat Your Way to Wellness, you know, and it's a book that is out on the market there. But tonight, Dr. Kasenene is feeling a bit generous. And he is going to ask you, the viewer who is watching right now, a question, and he will tell you a number at which you can drop your response. If you get it right, you stand a chance to win a book that you will be able to pick up from UBC TV. Dr. Kasenene, maybe first take us just in about a minute or two. What, I know you speak passion. I'm seeing you're talking about the 7 principles of achieving optimal health and your ideal weight. You're very, very passionate when it comes to about how we look. What drew you to say now? Let me put it out for them here on paper.
So thank you, Sophie, for asking. So for those who don't know, my journey as a medical doctor in the field of wellness started with my own personal story, where a few years after medical school, I began to struggle with small issues around my health. That eventually meant that I went to see a doctor who I worked with, and he wanted to give me cholesterol-lowering drugs, and he said maybe even high blood pressure drugs, because my pressure was going up. That led me on a journey to think about why do we get sick and what can we do. Eventually, I met a doctor in the United States called Joel Fuhrman, who actually made me realize that what we eat is the most powerful, factor on how healthy we are. And he took me through a journey of first 7 days of no cooked food. Said don't eat cooked food for 7 days, which was really hard, but I did. And then he took me on another journey. Excuse me.
Sorry.
For 3 months, where I was eating really well. Then I saw personal changes in my health that were so powerful, like my allergies going down. I lost a lot of weight, which I didn't want to, but I did lose weight. My blood pressure came down, my cholesterol came down. I realized people want to be healthy. People don't want to have good doctors and lining up to see, Dr. Kasenene every day. No, you want to be well. But then I realized also what to eat is not common sense. It's very confusing to know what to eat. You have Dr. Kasenene saying, don't drink milk. And another doctor saying, drink milk. Someone says, don't eat meat. And another says, eat meat. So it can be totally confusing around what should I eat, what should I not eat. Because food is something we enjoy, we tend to lean towards those who are saying things that we like to hear. But I found that the whole goal of eating healthy is that people should be able to live a long life, should be healthy, and should also enjoy eating. And really that's the whole purpose of the book. How do we end this confusion around food? And I actually found that instead of following rules, let's follow principles. For example, the one principle is 90% of the time, eat real food. So eat unprocessed, natural, whole food. Eat pumpkin, beans, cabbage. If it's chicken, avoid bread, fried chips, things which are artificial. Then how much animal foods should we eat? So in the book, I actually go through the 7 principles, and I also answer common questions people have around milk, around fruits, around honey, around sweeteners, and try and give, the best science-based approaches. And I also talk about what should you eat at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, how much food should you serve on your plate, when should you eat. We talk about why do people fail to lose weight, yet they are exercising and trying to eat well. We also talk about things like, if you have, for different health conditions, what should I eat? And, also like, we live in a world where our brain is used so much today. And so it suffers the most. People have fatigue, they can't sleep, they have headaches, they can't remember things, they can't focus. So what should I eat for these conditions? So that's really what is in the book. I also put in testimonies, real-life testimonies of people who have actually had improvements. But I do realize that, eating healthy is not always the most fun thing to do.
I understand.
So we need to find a way to make it interesting. So that's why the book is really about that. It's took me 2 years to write it. This is a revised edition. So we have added a few more things that make it more meaningful. So yeah, I encourage people to buy the book. It costs $60,000. It's all over the place at Aristoc. It's at most bookshops should have it. It's also available at pharmacies like C&A, like EcoFarm, at our clinic in Bugolobi. It's even on Amazon, people who want to buy it. But I think it's a good resource to have. And yeah, we really hope people can benefit from it. Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Kasenene, just about 1 minute to go. Ask the question to the viewer and give them the number on which they are supposed to give the response so they can be able to come and pick up an autographed book here at UBC, because he will definitely drop us a message on who the lucky winner is, who has been able to get the answer right based on the question that he is going to ask. Please go ahead.
So I will ask a very simple question, and let me see, what can I ask? So there is one particular seed that is very beneficial for libido, for erection, and for prostate health. Common in Uganda. What seed is that? So the first correct answer will get the book. The number to send your answer to is 0701 450 450. That is 0701 450 450. And the question is, what seed is very good for libido, sexual health, and prostate?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kasenene. I do really appreciate, and I will get to say thank you to the doctors, and some of the people said Dr. Kasenene would be the ideal person to talk about this sensitive topic of discussion, because many people do shy away from this. Now, let me read for you this comment, that says medical practitioners need to be sensitive when discussing sexuality issues among older men and to present practical solutions, just like he said, and take them into, that you need to have at the back of your mind the fact of culture you cannot ignore when you're talking about these matters. And also, please do respect their privacy when it comes to discussing these issues. Find ways of supporting them, because it's a sensitive issue, and many of them don't know how to go around it and to deal with it. That is all we had for you tonight on You Health Chat, and I would like to say thank you once again to Dr. Kasenene, who's made time to come and talk about this topic. We're planning to have him come more frequently to studio, because sometimes you have a lot of questions you're dropping me. I have no answers to them, and you're telling me, but he was here in studio the other time. We will once dedicate a month to him where you will have to ask him the questions yourself. It is good night from me and Dr. Kasenene. Lauren Kazimoto is coming your way with the 10 o'clock news very shortly. Bye-bye.
Jovia ng'oyolekera ku lugendo luno olw'obulamu, nkuwa ekirabo eky'amaanyi agatazizibwa, amaanyi okulabibwa n'okuwulirwa mu mawanga ageewala ennyo, okutuuka buli wamu nga yadde togenzeeyo, ensi yonna ng'ekuli mu ngalo. Okutambula mu biseera n'okumanya buli kimu ekirina okumanyibwa. Jovia, kino kye kirabo kyange gy'oli.
Tewali kumuko ki gy'osobola okukola omukutu nnandameggwa ogwa MTN. Manyini mu pasizi barangi already ne bulu